Hi friends, my name is Amanda Schreiber and I'm doing a lesson today on characters. Let's watch this go noodle so that we can get calm, alert, and ready to learn.
From mindless to mindful. To be mindful is to let your attention rest on this moment, on just right now. Let's practice being in the moment. Your body is still, right now. Can you feel that? Your breath is moving in and out of your nose. Can you notice that? Rest one hand on your chest. Can you feel your breath? Move that hand to your belly. Notice breath there. Can you feel that? Bring your hands around to your back. Breath might be moving there. Feel that? This bell is ringing right now. Can you hear that? Where is your attention? Did it wander? It's okay. That's what minds do. Let's practice a little bit more. Now this bell is ringing. Can you hear that? This green dot is still. Can you see that? Some of the other dots are moving. Notice that and then focus your attention on the very still dot. Return your attention to your body. Hands. They're still. Can you feel them? Feet are still. Can you feel them? You are here right now. Can you feel that? In this moment, you are mindful. Do you notice that? There are moments in your day when you can practice being mindful. When you are reading, just read. When you are tying your shoe, just tie your shoe. When you are chewing your food, just chew. Your mind can be full of one thing, one moment at a time.
All right, now that we're calm, alert, and ready to learn, let's get started. Let's practice some word work with homophones. So to review, a homophone is a word that sounds the same as another word, but has a different meaning. For example, the kids rode, R-O-D-E, down the road, R-O-A-D. So they're riding their bikes down the road. Here are some other examples. Peace and peace. P-E-A-C-E means a feeling of calm. P-I-E-C-E is I have a piece of the puzzle. So peace and peace, they sound the same, but they have different meanings. Also, plane and plane. P-L-A-N-E is a plane that flies through the sky. Plane, P-L-A-I-N, is a type of landform. So again, we have two words that sound the same, but they have different meanings. Let's practice. Last week, W-E-E-K, Sam went to the doctor because he was feeling weak, W-E-A-K, and had a sore throat. So W-E-E-K is talking about 7 days in a week, a time. And W-E-A-K is talking about a feeling. It's like when you're tired or you're sluggish, not strong, but weak. So we're going to use these two words, weak and weak, to fill in the blanks. I want you to get out a scrap piece of paper and a pencil, and you can jot down which one you think it is. Or you can just shout it out. I felt weak after running the marathon. Is that W-E-E-K, weak, or W-E-A-K, weak? If you put W-E-A-K, weak, you got it right. I felt weak, W-E-A-K, as in I felt tired after running the marathon. I don't know about you, but when I run a marathon, I'd be really exhausted and really tired. Can we visit Grandma next week? Is that W-E-E-K or W-E-A-K? W-E-E-K. We're talking about going to visit Grandma in a week, a state of time. Let's look at the next one. Mom said it will be cold during the week of our break. Do we choose W-E-E-K or W-E-A-K? If you wrote down W-E-E-K, you chose the right answer. W-E-E-K is talking about a time and that time of week of our break. And the last one, you will feel weak if you skip breakfast. If you chose W-E-A-K, you are correct. W-E-A-K is talking about feeling tired. And I know if I don't have breakfast in the morning, I don't feel good. So W-E-A-K. Good job on working on those words. Let's get started with our reading lesson today. We're going to focus on standard RL 2.3, which says to describe how characters in a story respond to major events and how characters affect the plot. Our I can statement today is, I can describe how characters in a story respond to major events. Today we're going to read the story called Chrysanthemum by Kevin Hinckus. This is one of my favorite books, and I hope you enjoy it. As I'm reading, I'll be stopping and asking a few questions, so you might want to have a pencil and paper to jot things down, jot some thoughts down. The day she was born was the happiest day in her parents' lives. She's perfect, said her mother. Absolutely, said her father. And she was. She was absolutely perfect. Her name must be everything she is, said her mother. Her name must be absolutely perfect, said her father. And it was. Chrysanthemum. Her parents named her Chrysanthemum. Chrysanthemum grew and grew and grew. And when she was old enough to appreciate it, Chrysanthemum loved her name. She loved the way it sounded when her mother woke her up. She loved the way it sounded when her father called her for dinner. And she loved the way it sounded when she whispered it to herself in the bathroom mirror. Chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum. Chrysanthemum loved the way her name looked when it was written with ink on an envelope. She loved the way it looked when it was written with icing on her birthday cake. And she loved the way it looked when she wrote it herself with her fat orange crayon. Chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum. Chrysanthemum thought her name was absolutely perfect. And then she started school. On the first day, Chrysanthemum wore her sunniest dress and her brightest smile. She ran all the way. Hooray, said Chrysanthemum. School! But when Mrs. Chud took roll call, everyone giggled upon hearing Chrysanthemum's name. It's so wrong, said Joe. It scarcely fits on your name tag, said Rita, pointing. I'm named after my grandmother, said Victoria. You're named after a flower. Chrysanthemum wilted. She did not think her name was absolutely perfect. She thought it was absolutely dreadful. So let's stop and think for a minute. So far, we know that Chrysanthemum was getting ready to go to school, and she loved her name. But now, how do you think she's feeling after all of these girls said these not so nice things to her? Let's keep reading to find out what happens. The rest of the day was not much better. During nap time, Victoria raised her hand and informed Mrs. Chudd that Chrysanthemum's name was spelled with 13 letters. That's exactly half as many letters as there are in the entire alphabet, Victoria explained. Thank you for sharing that with us, Victoria, said Miss Chudd. Now put your head down. If I had a name like yours, I'd change it, Victoria said, as the students lined up to go home. I wish I could, thought Chrysanthemum miserably. Welcome home, said her mother. Welcome home, said her father. School is no place for me, said Chrysanthemum. My name is too long. It scarcely fits on my name tag, and I'm named after a flower. Oh, pish-posh, said her mother. Your name is beautiful. And precious and priceless and fascinating and winsome, said her father. It's everything you are, said her mother. Absolutely perfect, said her father. Chrysanthemum felt much better after her favorite dinner, macaroni and cheese with ketchup, and an evening filled with hugs and kisses and parcheesi. That night, Chrysanthemum dreamed that her name was Jane. It was an extremely pleasant dream. The next morning, Chrysanthemum wore her most comfortable jumper. She walked to school as slowly as she could. She dragged her feet in the dirt. Chrysanthemum, 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 she wrote. So let's stop and think again. Right now, Chrysanthemum, when she went to school on the first day, she was so excited. She was skipping and running and jumping. And now she's kind of not excited about going to school. How do you think Chrysanthemum feels about the friends she's made so far at school? Let's keep reading to find out. She even looks like a flower, said Victoria as Chrysanthemum entered the playground. Let's pick her, said Rita, pointing. Let's smell her, said Joe. Chrysanthemum wilted. She did not think her name was absolutely perfect. She thought it was absolutely dreadful. The rest of the day was not much better. During nap time, Victoria raised her hand and said, A chrysanthemum is a flower. It lives in a garden with worms and other dirty things. Thank you for sharing that with us, Victoria, said Mrs. Chudd. Now put your head down. I just cannot believe your name, Victoria said as the students lined up to go home. Neither can I, thought Chrysanthemum miserably. Welcome home, said her mother. Welcome home, said her father. School is no place for me, said Chrysanthemum. They said I even look like a flower. They pretended to pick me and smell me. Oh, pish-posh, said her mother. They're just jealous. And envious and begrudging and discontented and jaundiced, said her father. Who wouldn't be jealous of a name like yours, said her mother. After all, it's absolutely perfect, said her father. Chrysanthemum felt a trifle better after her favorite dessert, chocolate cake with buttercream frosting, and another evening filled with hugs and kisses and parcheesi. That night, Chrysanthemum dreamed that she really was a chrysanthemum. She sprouted leaves and petals. Victoria picked her and plucked the leaves and petals one by one until there was nothing left but a scrawny stem. It was the worst nightmare of Chrysanthemum's life. Chrysanthemum wore her outfit with 7 pockets the next morning. She loaded the pockets with her most prized possessions and her good luck charms. Chrysanthemum took the longest route possible to school. She stopped and stared at each and every flower. Chrysanthemum, 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 the flower seemed to say. That morning, the students were introduced to Mrs. Twinkle, the music teacher. Her voice was like something out of a dream, as was everything else about her. The students were speechless. They thought Miss Twinkle was an indescribable wonder. They went out of their way to make a nice impression. Mrs. Twinkle led the students in scales. Then she assigned roles for the class musicale. Victoria was chosen as the dainty fairy queen. Rita was chosen as the spiffy butterfly princess. Jo was chosen as the all-important pixie messenger. And Chrysanthemum was chosen as a daisy. Chrysanthemum's a daisy, chrysanthemum's a daisy. Jo, Rita, and Victoria chanted, thinking it was wildly funny. Chrysanthemum wilted. She did not think her name was absolutely perfect. She thought it was absolutely dreadful. What's so humorous? Asked Miss Twinkle. Chrysanthemum, was the answer. Her name is so long, said Jo. It scarcely fits on her name tag, said Rita, pointing. I'm named after my grandmother, said Victoria. She's named after a flower. My name is long, said Mrs. Twinkle. It is, said Jo. My name would scarcely fit on a name tag, said Mrs. Twinkle. It would, said Rita, pointing. And, said Mrs. Twinkle, I'm named after a flower, too. You are? said Victoria. Yes, said Mrs. Twinkle. My name is Delphinium, Delphinium Twinkle. And if my baby is a girl, I'm considering Chrysanthemum as a name. I think it's absolutely perfect. Chrysanthemum could scarcely believe her ears. She blushed, she beamed, she bloomed. Chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum. Jo, Rita, and Victoria looked at Chrysanthemum longingly. Call me Marigold, said Jo. I'm Carnation, said Rita, pointing. My name is Lily of the Valley, said Victoria. Chrysanthemum did not think her name was absolutely perfect. She knew it. The epilogue. Overall, the class musicale was a huge success. Chrysanthemum was absolutely perfect as a daisy. Victoria made the only mistake. She completely forgot her lines as the dainty fairy queen. Chrysanthemum thought it was wildly funny, and she giggled throughout the entire Dance of the Flowers. Eventually, Mrs. Twinkle gave birth to a healthy baby girl, and of course, she named her Chrysanthemum. All right, so let's look back at the main events that we had in this story. The first event that I want to start with is that Chrysanthemum starts school. How did Chrysanthemum respond? So let's look back in the story. We remember that as she was going to school, she thought her name was absolutely perfect. And on the first day of school, it even said that Chrysanthemum wore her sunniest dress and her brightest smile, and she ran all the way. She was so excited. So how did she respond to her first day of school? Chrysanthemum is excited to start school, and she wears her sunniest dress and her brightest smile, and she thinks her name is perfect. That's the answer we would put down there. Let's look at the next event. Mrs. Chud takes roll call. All the students giggle when they hear Chrysanthemum's name. How did Chrysanthemum respond to this happening? Well, let's look back in the story. After Mrs. Chud said all the kids' names, and her friends, who she thought were her friends at the time, were making fun of her, Chrysanthemum wilted. She did not like her name. She thought it was dreadful. So let's write that in that blank. Chrysanthemum becomes sad and she no longer thinks her name is absolutely perfect. The next event is that Chrysanthemum's parents make her favorite dinner and they give her hugs and kisses and they play her favorite game, Parcheesi. So how did she respond to that? Well, looking back in the story, remember that Chrysanthemum felt so much better. Think about if somebody did something nice for you when you weren't feeling good. That's how Chrysanthemum responded. She felt so much better. So we'll add that to our graphic organizer. The next event is the event where Joe and Rita and Victoria say mean and hurtful things to Chrysanthemum. And they pretend to smell her and pick her while they are on the playground. Think about if you were out at recess and somebody was making fun of you, how it would make you feel. Do you respond the same way that Chrysanthemum did? Well, Chrysanthemum wilted, remember? And she didn't think her name was perfect anymore. She thought it was absolutely dreadful. Is that how you would have reacted? So adding this to our graphic organizer, Chrysanthemum wilts. She's sad and she doesn't like her name anymore. And our last event we want to highlight is that Mrs. Twinkle speaks about her name. And she tells the students that she's going to name her baby, if it's a girl, Chrysanthemum. Think about a time where you have maybe felt bad about something and then somebody does something nice for you. How does that make you feel? Did Chrysanthemum respond the same way? We'll find out. Remember, after Miss Twinkle told her all that she could say about her name being long, it could scarcely fit on a name tag, and she was named after a flower, and then she told the class that she was going to name her baby, if it was a girl, Chrysanthemum too. Chrysanthemum could scarcely believe her ears. She blushed, she beamed, she bloomed. She was so proud of her name at that point. So we'll add that to our graphic organizer as well. Chrysanthemum blushes, beams, and blooms, and she becomes very happy. So now I want you to practice. I have a story called The Lost Cat, and I want you to read it and fill in how Jake and Sarah respond to these events that I have highlighted for you. So my code word for today is flower. That's flower, Flower. Thanks for joining me, and I hope you have a great time this afternoon, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks.